If you are taking the PMP exam, you need to understand that the anatomy of the questions always has what should the project manager do next? What should the project manager have done first? Such and such. It's been very clear over the past 10 hours what exactly the exam could pose. So I want to give you a blueprint to help you answer PMP exam questions, and I call it the dig sieve approach. This was coined from a process that is a hidden gem in the PMBOK Guide 6th edition, believe it or not. The very first step in any problem you face on any exam or in life is to first of all define the problem that you are facing. This is a critical step. You need to stand back and read the question again if you didn't get the problem statement the first time. So define the problem. A project is late. That's not the problem. A project is late. Why is the project late is the problem. The project is late is a scenario. It's something happening now. So when you get a question that says the project is late, what should you do next? You shouldn't miss what is in between. It could say the project is late as a result of a team member being sick. Or a project is late as a result of a supplier not delivering a widget on time. Or a project is late because a document has been delayed from HR, or a document approval from the federal government has been delayed. You need to understand why your project is late, and that is defining the problem. Now, if you're not able to get that from the first statement, you need to break down the statement into smaller pieces. And that is what we call breaking down the problem. You break down the problem and then you understand what the problem is. Afterwards, you could gather data to support your understanding of the problem. You gather data and you can use that to identify the root cause. So, the project is late. There has been a delay in a document approval. Make sure you have gathered as much data from the question as possible to identify the root cause. Now, the question sometimes might be silent on what has caused the problem. If the question is silent, then you need to use the process of elimination straight up to understand, okay, this is a predictive project. This is possibly what could have happened, or this is an agile project. This is definitely not agile, so I'm not going to choose options A and D. Then you've got B and C. Through the process of elimination, many a time you are able to choose what is in the spirit of Agile or what is tailored more to a predictive scenario. But it has to start off with a solid understanding of the problem. So if you're told a project is late, you need to find out why is it late. In my mind, the problem could be a document is stuck. Now, when you understand why the document is stuck and the level of the people involved, perhaps escalation could help, perhaps. But PMI rarely goes into the escalation clause. Sometimes they do, other times they don't. So you need to understand what is in the spirit of good PMP. A good PMP is not looking for a mother may I cop-out or looking to escalate every little thing. Every question cannot be an escalation. So when you have identified the root cause in your head, you got to train yourself before looking at the options to very quickly, I'm talking about microseconds, seconds at worst, have gone through a smattering of possibilities in your head to know what you should be looking out for. You should have also used the process of elimination to know the question is not clear enough, so I'm not going to choose crashing. Crashing will not solve the problem. Fast tracking is not explicitly going to solve this problem. Then you need to analyze everything else. So you generate these alternative solutions in your head, and afterwards you take a look at the options on the exam and you choose the best solution. The best solution is the solution that makes the most sense in the context of a predictive, agile, whatever type of project and the scenario painted. The reason why a lot of people get certain questions wrong is they missed a clue, a critical clue that could have helped you answer the question, and you just blew past it. This is why you need to train yourself to read the content, not just quickly, but accurately. Do not sacrifice speed and accuracy, but choose accuracy over speed. Speed is important because I have a lot of students that say, Phil, I ran out of time, and I'm like, you gotta have been quicker. But while being quicker, I don't want you to sacrifice the accuracy. Both are important, but don't sacrifice accuracy to be a speed demon, if you get what I'm saying. What is the thesis? You got to be quick and you got to be accurate. It's like a soldier. You got to be able to bring that firearm out and use it accurately. And that's how the exam is. You got to be quick, but you got to be accurate. How do you get that good? Practice. You got to practice, practice, practice reading accurately and quickly, which means when you look at a block of text, you need to have trained yourself to see the keywords. It needs to be as though in slow motion, even though this is in 1 second, you're able to see all of the words that matter. And it comes from practice. You see a block of text and your eye just goes to the right words. And then on top of that, you're able to very quickly read through. I'm not talking about scan, because scanning gets you into trouble. Don't scan. Actually read. And if you're taking this exam, don't mouth the words out, because they get mad at Pearson when you are mouthing the words of the question. So you got to train yourself to not move your mouth, especially if you're taking the exam at home. And by the way, why would you even take the exam at home? What's the matter with you? You've got a Pearson test center 10 miles away. You're going to risk all these months of preparation to take it at home. Now, don't get me wrong. There are people with mobility issues. They got to take the exam at home. There are people that don't have a Pearson test center around them. They got to take it at home. I know, yes. But for you, you got a Pearson test center 50 miles in that vicinity, that radius, and you are taking the risk of being at home for your PMP. I'm going to ask you again, what is the matter? Get smart, my friends. I've been doing this for 18 years. And when PMI came on the scene in COVID with a proposition to take it at home, right off the bat, my friends, disaster for a lot of my students. A lot of my students would take the exam at home and they would not be able to complete the exam because of technical issues or the proctor just being difficult and tough to get along with and being so judgmental. You moved out of frame. You mouthed the words, and all sorts of ridiculousness. So if you can take the exam in a test center, please do that. And then no one's going to be saying, well, you can't mouth the words. You can actually mouth the words if you are in a test center, as long as you're not speaking audibly. And honestly, there's some of us that have to do that. When you are mouthing the words and the solutions, it helps sometimes to process the information. Okay? So in your head, you implement the solution and then you check in your head, did that really work? Would that solve the problem? And I have to be honest, some of you have been scarred, sadly, by taking questions on the hall. You know what I'm talking about, the so-called hall. And then you get scarred because you followed the steps and then you get a ridiculous answer out of left field that doesn't make sense. Hey, this is to encourage those of you that have been scarred by the study hall, okay? I know a lot of you are taking those questions and you're frustrated. And you have every right to be frustrated. I am an instructor and I am frustrated at the lack of finesse and the inaccuracies that exist in that exam. I applaud you for looking for the truth, taking questions over and over again. And I want to give you this hope. All is not lost because the exam is not written by the same people. The exam isn't written like the study hall. There are some questions that are so needlessly tedious and so ridiculous. And I'm like, who even thinks this happens in the real world? What planet do you do your project management on? I was reading a question that one of my students who recently passed the exam very kindly let me know about. And I'm looking at this question and I'm like, this isn't even real world. You're looking for stakeholders on a project. How many companies even do a lessons learned? Come on now. Let's be honest. I know times have changed. But those who do a lessons learned, I'm telling you, those companies, you're starting a new project, ain't no project manager going back to look in the archives because there ain't no archives in many of these firms. So you're looking for your stakeholders. PMP 6 captured it quite realistically. It's expert judgment. So the answer that says brainstorm with your team, which is what you would typically do in the real world, is wrong. And the outlandish answer of go into the old archives and look for documentation is the right answer. And then it refers to some outlandish book that isn't even part of the PMP trifecta that the PMI have been pushing, which is the Agile Practice Guide, the PMP 7 and PMP 6. I want to assure you, your exam will not be as ridiculous. I'm going to say it again because you're looking at me like you don't know if what Phil is saying is the truth. No, your exam is not written like that. Your exam is written in a similar style of what should the project manager do next, but the different 100 shades, 100 shades of blue that the exam presents and the study hall presents, and it's very debatable, very controversial answers, and quite annoying. Your actual exam is not like that. If it was, people would fail very frequently on this new exam. That is not to say people don't fail, but it's not as bad. Because I hear a lot of people on the social media boards crying and lamenting, I failed, I got a 60. What is the real exam going to do to me if this is doing this? And my answer to you is, quite frankly, you're doing the right thing and looking for answers from the source. I often say, you got to go to the horse so you hear from the horse's mouth. So I know it is a bit frustrating to go to the body that presents the exam and to have questions that are not reality, because it's written by a different team. So my advice to you, who has been doing your best and working your tail off on these outlandish questions is to don't fret. All is not wasted. You'll get into the exam and you realize, oh, it's not crazy like this. And I know a lot of you are overachievers. So you're like, oh, I got to go for the strongest exam. I got to go for the craziest of the study halls. If you are a Martian or Plutonian, if you're from out of this world, then perhaps you will not be moved or discouraged. If you are from Earth, if you are an Earthling, I expect you to be very discouraged about some of the marks. Here's part of the frustration. Some of those questions have no rhyme or reason. So you're frustrated. You're discouraged. I want to caution you. Don't get so discouraged that you refuse to take the exam when you have scheduled it. If I were you, I would pull back from the, in quote, difficult end of the spectrum of those questions, because in my mind, they are worthless and I do not prescribe them. If you have taken a number of questions that are in the intermediate, easy realm, in my mind, I would say, don't do more than that. Okay? I would say balance up the perspective by looking at questions such as the ones in the playlist I have. I have a couple of playlists. One is 180 questions, thereabouts. The other one is 250 questions. Balance it up with that. And be true to applying the dig, sieve approach. Define the problem, identify the root cause, generate alternatives, and go for the kill. Choose the best alternative. Then implement it hypothetically in your head and ask the question, will that really solve the problem? Another piece of advice I have for you is to go with your gut. In instances where everything else fails, go with your gut. So, to tackle situational questions, you got to read carefully. Don't sacrifice accuracy. But also, you need the speed, or you will run out of time, as many people have. So I am saying practice 1 minute a question. Yes, I know it sounds brutal. I know it sounds crazy, but you need to think 1 minute so that you've got 15 seconds as a buffer. Please do this. Okay, I've been doing this for a very long time, and I realized that a number of students that are slow in reading and they don't have any accommodations, they don't finish the exam conveniently. They rush, they sacrifice quality for speed, and they fail because they ran out of time. I know a lot of students like that. So you got to get quick. Okay? Number 2, identify the core issue. Focus on the main problem or challenge. Number 3, determine the project phase. Recognize the project life cycle phase. Where am I? Am I in initiating? What happens after that? Am I in planning? Where could I not be based on what this question says? What could I not do immediately? You have just completed the authorization document for the project. What should you do next? Develop a schedule. Develop a work performance report. It's definitely not the latter. The work performance report, you don't do that. Why it is not the report is if you're done with initiating, you have done no work to develop a report. So it would have to be the schedule, right? It would have to be the formal one, the schedule. If you're also in a situation where it says you have just completed the project management plan, what should you do next? And you have a business case versus a project closeout. Even though the project closeout seems far-fetched, it would have to be the project closeout and not the business case. So knowing where you are in the scheme of things is going to help you as you tackle these questions. Recall the PM processes. You don't have to cram the processes anymore. I want to give you this perspective. The exam barely contains mention of the 49 processes. Barely. You might get one mention of the 49 processes, maybe two, maybe a handful, but not more than that. So I want to encourage you to understand the processes as opposed to cramming the processes. Okay. There's no need to cram them. There's no need to cram the ITTOs. That era has gone. Number 5, eliminate extreme options. Some of the options that say never or always are flat out wrong, and you can tell that right from the get-go. Number 6, avoid generalizations. You got to be aware of words that I mentioned and further generalizations. All the stakeholders. What do you mean invite all the stakeholders? All? Why would you invite all the stakeholders to a weekly meeting? Doesn't make sense. Especially when the question says you're a project manager on a large size government project, blah, blah, blah. And then you have a statement that says all the stakeholders or all the customers. Look out for things like that. Look for the next logical step. Focus on the immediate step. You have identified your risks. What should you do next? Plan the risk responses or perform a quantitative risk analysis. It would be a quantitative risk analysis. The risk response will come next. So there are going to be times where you have A, B, C, D, and in your head you need to rearrange A, B, C, D. If you're in a test center and you have writing material with that blank slate they gave you, you can write the order of things. If you're at home, you cannot. It's one of the downsides for people that are very kinesthetic. They have to write, they have to see something in a flow chart. They have to imagine it or see it in reality. For those kind of people, you may want to write down as much as possible, which means not taking the exam at home, taking it in a test center. Even though the exam has a whiteboard electronically, it's quite clunky. Number 8, beware of distractions and options. Align with the core issue. There's always going to be distractions, red herrings, things that send you off the beaten track. You got to be aware of things like that. All right, number 9, trust PMBOK principles. Rely on the PMBOK guides principles. You know, we have these 12 principles. Yes. My advice about the 12 principles is to really understand them as presented in the PMI's PMBOK 7th edition. Understand the context of them, and as I said, go with your gut when all else fails. Okay. So if you follow the structure that I have mentioned, if you ensure that you understand the material and then follow the advice I've given you by practicing daily, practice a mock exam a day, even if it's a 15-question mock exam, it'll help you. It'll help get your thinking into that realm. There's a realm of thinking you need to be in, and it comes with warming up and practicing on the regular. If you are able to do that on the regular, the chances of success are going to be a lot higher. So by following the structured approach and advice I've given, you can enhance your chances of success by selecting the correct answer and navigating the complexities of situational questions. A few weeks ago, I gave you a number of scenarios to help align your thinking in preparation for the exam. I called it 100 situational scenarios every aspirant should know. I want to give you a quick reminder about these scenarios. Your exam is going to be riddled with the what should the PM do next? Project is over budget. What should the PM do next? Key team members resign. What should the project manager do next? For every question you're seeing on the screen, I want you to hit the pause button and I want you to ask yourself, do I even understand this scenario? Quality issues reported. What kind of issues? Critical path delayed? Critical path delay identified? What is the critical path? What does it mean when it's delayed? What are some of the potential delivery problems? Project risks not properly managed, and so on and so forth. But I need you to be true to yourself. This is me trying to help you. Please take what I'm saying seriously. Hit the pause button and then ask yourself, do I even understand this situation? Okay? If you don't have time to do it now, bookmark, like, subscribe, and come back to this video. These 100 scenarios are very similar to what you could get on the exam. Stakeholder disengagement, resource availability mismatch, quality standards not met. Going into the world of Agile, the Agile backlog is misprioritized. What should you do? What can you do? What should you do as a Scrum Master? Velocity fluctuations, scope creep in Agile. The Agile team lacks focus, and you got to remember your exam has Agile and hybrid. Don't forget the hybrid, because a hybrid is a boatload of hybrid. The way the question is written, sometimes the question is in the middle of the road, not Agile and not predictive overtly. It's hybrid. So how do you tackle it? You need to decide, how do I do this? The team lacks a velocity chart. Is that a problem? What would be on the y-axis? What would be on the x-axis? The x-axis should have the time factor, so sprints could be a possibility, and so could weeks. But you also need to know what would not be on the x-axis. Story points would not be on the x-axis. Things like that. The Agile team lacks a sprint goal. Who should be worried about that? How would that be resolved? And so on and so forth. Over the past 11 hours, my friends, we've been taking a look at various question possibilities for your exam. I have also been helping you understand how to navigate the questions. I have also spoken to the controversial, popular option from our friends at headquarters at the PMI. I have also dispelled certain myths and tried to clarify that the exam is written by different humans. Thank goodness. Thank goodness. Thank goodness it's not the study hall, people. Otherwise, y'all would be failing so miserably. Thank goodness for that. If you're looking for training, coaching, or development, even beyond your PMP, I provide leadership coaching to help those of you who are graduates of the PMP. It's one thing to get PMP, it's another thing to up the ante in your career. PMP is not the answer. It's the beginning for many of us, like it was for me, but it's not the answer. Many people getting certified, still unable to crush it in the marketplace. Many people getting certified, but they ain't killing it. They're still playing small because it ain't about PMP. It's about what you do with it, my friends. So going down to Praizion.com, the various options of studying and learning, and I would really love to see you blow this thing up. Why get certified if you're going to play small? If you're going to be a dwarf in the corner, refusing to grow, why do that? You got to blow this thing up, man. You got to blow it up, blow it up. Go to the next level. Stop being a little mouse in the house, in a little corner in the wall. Blow this thing up. So get certified and then come back and have a conversation with me. Get to your next level in life, my friends. I wish you all the best. Thank you for staying with me this far. All the very best. And you take care. And I will talk to you very soon. Bye for now.